Hello BookTube, Sarah here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with my weekly reads for August the 4th of 2018. In my weekly reads videos every week, I talk about all the books that I finished this week, and I let you guys know what I'm currently reading. So, I finished 5 books this week, and I finished all the books that I had on my July TBR. Sort of, kind of. Like I always say about my TBRs, they are subject to change, but I completed all my challenges, which was the big deal. So, let's jump into all the books that I finished this week. The first one that I finished was Now That You Mention It by Kristan Higgins. This is a chick lit contemporary romance novel. It was narrated on audio by Exie Sands, published in 2017 by Graydon House. It has an average rating on Goodreads of 4.15 stars, guys. I gave it 5 stars. I loved this book. I mean, I adore Kristan Higgins books anyway, but this one was fantastic. So I got 3 challenges for this one. The Triple RC challenge for July, for challenge number 8, which was Hammock Day, which was essentially read a book that you'd want to, you know, relax with in a hammock. And obviously any Kristan, or most books that I read would fit this criteria, but this is the one I slotted in. This is of course one for my summer romance book bingo, for contemporary romance. And for the Fly Around the World with AMMP, the A Million More Pages group, I got, and I'm sorry, I know I'm gonna pronounce this wrong. It's Xing Kautuang, I believe, in Laos, and that is XKH is the airport code. So if you're new to my channel, what this challenge is to fit authors' names into airport codes, and your goal is to get, I think, 205 between July 31st and July 1st and December 31st. So you've got 6 months to do this one. It's been really fun. So yes, this book was fabulous, you guys, absolutely fabulous. So the plot of the story, it's about a woman named Nora. And Nora is she's a doctor. And she does, you know, like your stomach and stuff like that. I'm sorry, I cannot remember a gastrochronologist, I believe is the name. And that's what she does. And she is working at a large hospital in Boston, and she's dating a guy, an ER doctor actually, who works in the same hospital. So, you know, her life is kind of going, you know, not too badly. She's got this boyfriend, but she had this big bad event that happened to her, and that's what it's called in the book. The big bad event, I think, is what it's called. And, you know, it happened in her past, but she's dating this guy now, and things seem to be going well. And, you know, at the very, very beginning of the book, pretty much, she's heading out to go get pizza for a group, and she ends up getting hit by a car. And she ends up, you know, with a concussion and a broken collarbone and, you know, broken arm, I think. And as she's, like, unconscious in the hospital, she thinks she's dead, but she's not. And the internal monologue is hysterical at the very beginning of the book when she's talking about if she died, things she was worrying about, like what would she wear to her funeral, and, you know, things like this. It is, I mean, it's classic Kristan Higgins humor. So anyway, she's laying in this hospital bed and overhears her boyfriend pretty much telling the nurse on staff, this very pretty girl, that, you know, he was actually planning on breaking up with Nora this weekend, but feels guilty now for doing so. And he's pretty much flirting with this nurse. She's, like, semi-conscious. So she kind of, you know, comes to, and she pretty much tells him it's over. And then she decides to go back home to the small island that she grew up on, off the coast of Maine, and spend the summer with her mother and her niece. Now, her sister, who is a year or two younger than Nora, Lily, is actually in prison. And Lily's daughter, Poe, is spending this time with the grandmother. And then the story kind of goes from there. So that's why I kind of put it in both the contemporary romance and chick lit. I think it borders more on chick lit category, because there is a romance involved with her and this guy named Sullivan that she used to know back in high school. But it's more a story of how Nora, you know, finds herself and how the family deals and things like that, dealing with the niece and dealing with her sister. I mean, it is absolutely fantastic. There are points, you know, like I said, with classic Kristan Higgins style, she kind of goes back and forth in time, and she goes back to this big bad event, and it almost brought me to tears listening to, you know, when this thing happened to her. In the back of her mind, she had her mother's voice telling her, "You're strong, you can do this," and that's what kind of almost, you know, made me start crying. That's the one thing that I really resonate, and it's like a one line in the book, but it really affected me listening to that part of it. You know, that bit with, you know, her mother's voice in her head. And yeah, it was really, really great. I loved the characters. I adored Nora. I adored Sullivan. There were some, Sullivan's twin brother Luke, he had some issues. And, you know, I kind of felt sorry for him a little bit, but, you know, you really don't like him very much. And, you know, the mother at first, I had some issues with her, but she really grew on me. And you kind of start to understand why things happened the way they happened. And yeah, this was an absolutely fabulous book. I absolutely adore Kristan Higgins, you guys know that. And, you know, I haven't read a bad book by her yet, but this one was exceptional, and I absolutely recommend it to everybody. The next book that I finished this week is The Rancher's Baby by Maisey Yates. It is another contemporary romance novel. It is book number 1 in the Texas Cattlemen's Club The Imposter series. It is Harlequin Desire novel number 2563. It was published in 2018, of course, by Harlequin. Has an average rating on Goodreads of 3.74 stars, and I gave it 3.5 stars. This is one that I read for the Read Bliss channel for Harlequin. For the video that I did for them, I actually filmed that video last night. I will be editing it and sending it off to them this weekend, but I thought I'd talk about it, you know, here to you guys anyway. There are no challenges for this one, just because it was one that was kind of an extra read for me. So yes, the video I'm going to be doing, or have already filmed, is all about Maisey Yates, which is super exciting. So anyway, this book was really fun, actually. It was about a woman by the name of Selena. Is it Selena? Yes, Selena. And when the book first opens, like the first page of the book, she is standing in a funeral home for her ex-husband's funeral. She's holding this, like, you know, important document, this legal document, that states that she is now the sole heir to his estate and his fortune. The only problem is that there are 4 other women standing in the same funeral home with her, holding the exact same piece of paper. And then, just to add something else to the whole mix, in walks the supposed dead ex-husband. Not so dead. So the story kind of starts from there. Her best friend Knox, that they've known each other since university, he is at the funeral because he wants to pay his respects and things like that, because Will is the name of the ex-husband, and Selena and Will and Knox had all been friends for quite some time. And, you know, he's kind of there when Will walks in, and of course Selena passes out, and, you know, things happen. So then Knox ends up driving Selena home, and then decides that he's actually going to move in with her for the next little while, because obviously something nefarious is going on. There was a dead body at this funeral. Like, not a body, but there was somebody in an urn. There were ashes. And, you know, the whole kind of intrigue mystery part of it is trying to find out who it is. So this series kind of follows that storyline. The Texas Cattlemen's Club does a lot of these little mini-series. Like right now I'm also reading through the After the Storm series, where they take kind of like a central plot, and then they have different authors write different parts of the story. So these ones, even though I say most of the time in contemporary romance you can read the series out of order, I feel with these ones that these are stories that you kind of do need to read in order, because they do build off of stories that happened before. So this is definitely one I'm going to be continuing with. Maisey Yates doesn't write all of them, like I said. There are various authors who write the next few books, but it is definitely one that I'm going to be continuing on with. The next book that I finished was It's in His Kiss by Julia Quinn. This is a historical romance Regency novel. It is book number 7 in the Bridgerton series. That makes me sad. I say this every time, because the series is almost over. And I mean, yes, I can definitely go ahead and reread all of these books, and I think at some point in the future I will, but I will never get to experience them again for the first time. Does that make sense? This was narrated on audio by Simon Preble. I think he does a really great job on the narration on these books. He didn't narrate the first few, but he narrates the last books. This was published originally in 2005 by Avon, has an average rating of 4.02 stars on Goodreads, and I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't my favorite in the series, but I still really did enjoy it. I got 2 challenges for this one. For the RRC for July, I got challenge number 1, which was J is for July, which is you need to read a book that starts with the letter J, or with an author's first or last name that starts with the letter J, and Julia Quinn. I also got this for the Summer Romance Book Bingo for book by an author writing under a pseudonym. Julia Quinn is not her real name, so it is a pseudonym. This is the story of, I can never pronounce her name correctly, so bear with, Hyacinth. Hyacinth. I always want to say Hyacinthia, I don't know why, but it's Hyacinth. And she is the youngest of the Bridgerton clan. Her beau in the story's name is Gareth. And what I kind of had a little bit of an issue with, I guess because this series has been running for so long, and, you know, it started out, when the series started with the first book, The Duke and I, she was only maybe 8 or 9. So when I first started listening to this one, it was kind of hard to get that little girl out of my head, and the fact that she's now, you know, in her very early 20s. So, you know, that I appreciated it, and, you know, you kind of watch her grow up throughout the series, but it was still kind of difficult to wrap my head around the fact that she's now grown up. But, you know, it took me a few chapters, and then I finally, you know, just, my mind clicked over, and it was like everything was fine. So in this story, Gareth is the younger son of his father, and his older brother is, of course, set to inherit, you know, the estate, and his dad's a baron and things like that. And he's pretty much told at the very beginning of the book that, which happens 10 years prior to the actual start of the story, in the prologue, that he is going to have to marry this girl who lives in the next estate, and because she's got a huge dowry and the family needs the money. And he refuses because, and right away from that first prologue, I fell in love with Gareth. He refused to do so because the girl, whose name was Mary, she's only really mentioned in the very beginning of this book. She is described as being simple. That she, even though she's in her early 20s, she has the mind of a child. So obviously she has some sort of mental issue, and I really, really commended, like, I mean, it showed his character, that the father was willing to marry him off even though everybody knew about this poor girl's condition, but yet Gareth pretty much stood up and threw everything away, everything that he had away, just to save this girl from, you know, this marriage that she wouldn't understand, you know what I mean? So anyway, book fast forward 10 years, and he ends up meeting, I keep having to look at her name, guys, I apologize, Hyacinth, at a gathering, like, of, you know, all the well-to-do people. And, you know, they kind of start a little bit of a relationship. And, sorry, my husband's just about to sneeze. He's sitting here watching his programs. And he kind of enlists her help because his brother had passed away the year before. And, you know, now his father's kind of after him because he's next in line to take over, you know, for when the father passes away, for the being a baron or whatever it is it's called. And his brother, after he had died, or before he had died, had ended up leaving this diary to Gareth. So the diary is actually from their grandmother, but it's all written in Italian because the grandmother was Italian. So he enlists her help to help him, you know, kind of figure out what's going on in this diary, and then the two of them start a relationship, and things go from there. It was a really cute story. Like I said, not my favorite in the series, but still really enjoyable. I love the Bridgertons. If you like historical romance, definitely give this one a try, or this series a try. Start with The Duke and I. This is one that really does, another one that kind of benefits from being read in order. They can be read out of order, but The Duke and I still stands as being my favorite in the series, so definitely start there. The next book that I finished this week was To Have and To Harley by Regina Cole. This is a contemporary romance novel. It is book number 1 in the Bikes and Brides series. There is no second book listed yet, but Goodreads actually has it listed as the first in the series, so we shall see if there's going to be more. The book does set itself up for being more books in the series, but we shall see. This was published in 2018 by Source Books. I think it actually comes out this week or next week. It has an average rating of 3.61 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 3.5 stars, and this was a NetGalley book. This is one of my NetGalley reads. I like this one, but I had a few issues with it. Mainly because I personally don't think the author knew exactly what direction she wanted this book to take. And I know that sounds odd, but let me explain. So the premise of the story is about this guy named Trey, and he runs with a motorcycle gang, a very vicious motorcycle gang. But they pride themselves on almost being like Robin Hood, where, you know, they're not killing people for the sake of killing, or they're not killing anybody, but they're not hurting people for the sake of hurting people. They're beating people up and things like this because they're trying to get drug dealers and things like that out of their neighborhood. So kind of a Robin Hood-esque feel to it. So they are doing bad things and kind of taking the law into their own hands, and they are hurting people sometimes very badly, but it's all kind of for a good reason. Almost like Dexter. I actually think that Dexter is referenced in this book at one point. So, you know, you've got this very, very hard biker gang, you know? So what happens with Trey is at the very beginning, he finds out, like, he grew up thinking that his mother had abandoned him in a gas station bathroom when he was just an infant. But it turns out that wasn't the case, that he had actually been abducted from his parents. And a private investigator, his mother never believed that he was dead because they got word that he had been killed. And she never believed that. So, you know, throughout the year, she's been hiring private investigators to try and find him. And she found him. So he finds out he actually has a mother and a sister. His father had passed a few years earlier. His biological father had passed a few years earlier. He'd been raised in foster homes. So he goes to meet this woman, but he realizes she's very straight-laced. She runs a shelter for boys that, you know, she always had in the back of her mind if he was ever on the street that, you know, she wanted to run the kind of shelter that he might show up at one day. Do you know what I mean? And he shows up in his biker leathers with his motorcycle, and he's covered in tattoos, like on his hands, on his neck, the whole 9 yards. And he lies to her and tells her that he's a wedding planner because the younger, like the sister, his biological sister, is getting married. So she hires him as the wedding planner. So this is where the story kind of veers off to a slightly odd place. And I liked both halves of the story. I just didn't think that they belonged together. Do you know what I mean? So him and this biker gang are now planning this wedding. And you get these big burly bikers, and they're talking about, you know, like fabric swatches and vision boards and putting together like centerpieces. And you get these little pops in the story, and it just seemed so out of place. And then you get into this scene where they're beating the crap out of some guy because he's a drug dealer. Like, it just didn't mesh together. Do you know what I mean? Like, in my head, I think the author had like two things that she wanted to do, and unfortunately, I mean, they did mix well together, and I get it. I didn't dislike it. I gave it 3.5 stars. It actually would almost border more on a 4-star. The writing was really good. The characters were fantastic, but it's just it just didn't make sense. Like, if you had this, like, you know, a biker gang that maybe weren't so rough and tough, and they were kind of doing this, it would be okay. Or if you took that whole aspect out of it. But I guess if you took that wedding aspect out of it, you're losing a major part of the plot. So yeah, I did enjoy it. It is, like I said, a NetGalley read, so it's a book that's coming out. You know, I recommend it. If you like biker romance, definitely check it out. It was a lot of fun. It was very, very spicy. So keep that in mind too. Oh yeah, the whole romance part of it, I never even got into that. He falls for and has a relationship with his sister Sarah's best friend Bethany. And she doesn't know that he is this biker. She actually thinks he's an undercover cop. So yeah, so that's the romance aspect of it. But still, like I said, it was enjoyable. It was a fun read. I couldn't put it down. The writing was great. Check it out if you're interested. And the last book that I finished this week was another Maisey Yates book, and that was Untamed Cowboy by Maisey Yates. This is another contemporary romance, book number 2 in the Gold Valley series. This was narrated on audio by Suzanne Elise Freeman. It was published in 2018 by HQN. Average rating of 3.98 stars on Goodreads, and I gave it 4 stars. Excuse me. No challenges for this one because this is another one I read for Read Bliss / Harlequin. So more information, of course, I will be talking about this one as well in the video for them. So anyway, this is the story of Bennett and Kaylee, and I actually read the Gold Valley series. I read the first 3 books because I didn't do my weekly wrap-up last week. You guys missed me talking about some of the books, so I do apologize. But definitely watch the Harlequin video when it comes out, or the Read Bliss video when it comes out. But I read books 1, 2, and 3, and I also read the novella that comes between book 1 and book 2. There is another novella that actually comes before the start of the series. That is a Christmas book that is going onto my Christmas TBR, because I just think it would be fun. You know, at this point, I've already read like 4 of the books in the series, essentially. It's not a big deal if I hold off and wait and go back and read book number or 0.5 at a later date. So the entire premise of the series is it's a small-town contemporary romance, and you guys know how much I love small-town contemporary romance. And it is the story of Bennett and Kaylee, and Bennett was actually one of the characters from the first book. His ex-girlfriend Olivia, it was her story in the first book. So he has had this friendship with Kaylee for like 13, or since they were 13, so quite some time. They're now in their, I think, early 30s. So they met when they were only 13, and they ended up growing up together and kind of doing all kinds of things together, you know, playing and hanging out and, you know, stuff like that. They ended up going to veterinary school together, and they both run now this vet's office in town. And, you know, they have a good platonic relationship. Literally, that's all it is. There is no romance involved, whatever. But then stuff happens. Something from Bennett's past comes back, and his life begins to change. And he starts looking at Kaylee in a completely different light. Well, Kaylee has been in love with him since she was 13, but she never wanted to ruin the friendship by pursuing anything. So the story kind of goes from there. And it was a lot of fun. It was really enjoyable. I will be honest, I did not care for Bennett so much in the first book. The way he came off dealing with the whole, with Olivia being his ex-girlfriend, and the fact that in that first book she's actually dating his best friend, and stuff like this, you know, I didn't, you know, I had a few issues with him. Not that I disliked him, but I had a few issues with him. But in this book, he absolutely redeems himself. He is absolutely fantastic. I really adored him. I adored Kaylee, too. My heart went out to her. She had a really difficult childhood. And yeah, and like I think I said, I read all of these books kind of out of order. It just so happens the way that I read the books. You know, what was available to me at what time. And they could all absolutely be read as standalones. Now, I read the third book before I read this book, and you are kind of spoiled a little bit for the thing that comes back from Bennett's past, but it really wasn't that big a deal. I knew it was coming, but it doesn't change it. You still get to grow with him and find out how he deals with that thing. So, yeah, really, really good. I enjoyed this one. It was a great small-town romance, but it is on the spicier side. Maisey Yates does write on the more explicit side, so be sure to keep that in mind. So what am I currently reading? I literally just started, like I am 12 minutes into it. My audiobook is Saint Anything by Sarah Dessen. This is being narrated on audio by Taylor Meskerman, I believe is how she pronounced it when I started listening to the audiobook. I'm not too sure too much about this. I know it's a YA book, and it's about a girl whose older brother has been in trouble with the law, and that's about as far as I've gotten into it yet and to know really what's going on. But so far, I am enjoying it. Like I said, only 12 minutes in, but I am enjoying the narration. The narrator does sound younger, and sorry, the complaints department with the cat is open. He wants all the attention on him. So yes, so that's my current audiobook. My current ebook is Rodeo Rescuer, and this is by Lynette Eason. This is book number 2 in the Wrangler's Corner series. This is a love-inspired, but it's being republished. It originally came out in 2015. And it's now being republished with a new cover, and the new cover is the one I'm showing you now. And I'm doing this one for another Read List video for Harlequin. That will be probably coming out in September. So it's all on cowboy romances. So this one, like I said, is a love-inspired, but I'm finding it's not as religious as some of them often are. And this is about a woman who's being stalked by an ex-boyfriend. And she works in the rodeo, and one of the bullfighters, or bull riders, excuse me, not bullfighters, bull riders, is kind of helping her out. So I'm about 60% of the way through this book right now. I should actually get this one done today, and I'm really, really enjoying it. My current, as I like to call them, my back to my childhood or my childhood books, I am currently reading The Mystery at Lilac Inn by Carolyn Keene. Book number 4 in the original Nancy Drew series. These books are so quaint and so much fun. So Nancy and her friend Helen are staying at this place called the Lilac Inn, and there's some mysterious things afoot, and you know, they're trying to find out what's going on. Super cute, and I'm really enjoying it. And last but not least, I'm just picking this up today, like I'm just starting this today. My current print book is The Surgeon and the Cowgirl by Heidi Hormel. This is an Harlequin American romance novel. It is book number 1 in the, Angels Crossing Arizona series. So it's about 2 people who are best friends, and she is actually the retired rodeo rider, and he is a surgeon. And she is starting a kind of a thing at her ranch doing like horse therapy for children that have some sort of like maybe cancer treatments or something like that they're going through. So like to bring them out and let them ride and things like that. So yeah, so far I am only 12 pages in. So I can't really tell you too much about the story, but it sounds really, really cute, and I'm sure I'm really going to enjoy it. So anyway, guys, that is it for the books this week. I do want to show you my knitting because I am almost done something, and I plan on finishing this today. because I have another sweater that I just bought the pattern for yesterday, and I happen to have the yarn for it, or I have yarn to make it, and I plan on casting that on afterward, because I have 2 other sweaters on the needles that, you know, need to get worked on too, but let's cast on another one. I seem to be really into sweater knitting lately. I don't know what it is. I want all the sweaters. I want all the hand knit sweaters. So this one, like I said, guys, is almost done. I have 3 rows left to do on it. And it will be done. And I will be able to wear it next week. And I will show it to you guys. I'll wear it in the video, and I'll try and insert some pictures when it's done. But I'll just show you. So, here is my campsite cardigan. I am absolutely in love with it. Look at the back, guys. Isn't that beautiful? So that's what it's, you know, like as you're wearing it, it's got the holes in it. It's not holy, but it's got like the lace work in it. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, I love it. So right now, the last 3 rows that I have to do are the button band. So the part that kind of goes up and around. You can see it here because it's on the needle. So I'm just doing that. So I've got, oops, let's not lose stitches. So I've got 3 more rows and then the bind off, and then this will be done, and I'll have to weave in all of my ends, and then I can give it a little bath and soak it. I actually, because this is 100% merino wool, it's going to grow when I wet it. So I have to be very careful with it. And because this is so lacy in the back, it is going to stretch like the dickens. So I have to be careful with it. So I am going to soak it and give it a nice little bath. And I'm going to try and stretch it out just a little bit because I want it just a little bit longer. And then once it dries, it'll be perfect. So like I said, I will definitely show it to you guys next week. I'll insert pictures next week when it's all said and done. And then I'll be casting on that next sweater that I was just mentioning. So you will probably see that next week. But anyway, guys, that is it for me. I do hope that you enjoyed this video. Sorry for the little odd lighting today. I'm kind of recording this relatively quickly. It is just before lunchtime on Saturday, and you guys aren't probably going to see this till much later because I am going out. I got to take the husband to work, and I have running around to do. And I knew I wouldn't get home till like 5 o'clock, and I thought, let's just sit down and record this now so I can get it up for you guys in a relatively timely manner as soon as I edit it. But anyway, guys, that is it for me. Videos coming up this week. I'm not going to be shooting any more today, so you're going to see me in probably a different outfit. I'm going to actually record those on Monday because Monday's a holiday. I don't think it's Canada-wide. I think it's just the province of Ontario. But for anyone else who lives in Ontario, happy August long weekend. I don't think there's an official name for it. It's just like the August civic holiday. So I am off of work, so that's a big bonus. I have a long weekend. And yeah, so I'll be shooting a couple more videos then. I'll be doing my wrap-up for the month of July. And it's going to be a little bit different than what I've been doing. Usually what I do is I try and put links to where I talked about all the books, like where I talked about each book. There are going to be some books that are missing because I didn't do a weekly reads last week. So that's the only thing, is that some of those links are going to be obviously not there because I didn't talk about them. So I apologize for that, for missing a week, you guys. And because I did actually finish 7 books last week. Like, I would have had 7 books to talk about. I will also be doing a update on my summer romance book bingo. I finally actually got a bingo, you guys. I got 2 lines. I have 9 more books left to finish. And I should get them all done in August because they are all on my August TBR. So yay. And thank you everybody so much who's participating in it. You guys are doing so much. There is somebody in the Goodreads group who has finished her 2nd bingo card. 2 full bingo cards, guys. It's putting me to shame. It's mine and Sissy's challenge. And, you know, like, good Lord. But yeah, I want to thank everybody so much for participating in that. And I will leave a link to the Goodreads group in the description box below in case you're curious to go and check it out. So yeah, so anyway, guys, I will talk to you in my next video. Until then, take care and happy reading. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Bye.